Late September 2025, Japan's Coast Guard intercepts a Chinese government vessel, Xiangyang 22, nearly 90 meters long and 3,381 tons, lowering suspicious equipment inside UN-disputed Japanese waters. Over 17 days, it returned 7 times, ignoring the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, and a 2-month notification pact. Each time Japan warns, each time China retreats, only to test the boundary again. Why risk open violation in clear-cut territory? What China was really doing offshore raises stakes far beyond routine surveys. The answer starts with the rules the world is supposed to enforce. Under international law, the rules for marine research in another country's exclusive economic zone are clear. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, spells it out in black and white. Article 246 states that marine scientific research in the exclusive economic zone and on the continental shelf shall be conducted with the consent of the coastal state. In these waters, Japan holds the right to authorize, regulate, or refuse any foreign scientific activity. This is not a technicality or a loophole. It is a fundamental principle. The exclusive economic zone grants a coastal state special jurisdiction over resources, exploration, and research up to 200 nautical miles from its coast. Foreign vessels, even those operated by governments, cannot simply arrive and begin deploying sensors or collecting data. They must first secure explicit permission from the state whose waters they enter. The law sets a mandatory baseline. No consent, no research. These requirements are not limited to disputed waters or areas of overlapping claims. They apply just as forcefully in undisputed zones, like the sea west of Amami Oshima. When a state ignores this rule, it is not just bending protocol, it is breaking the legal order that underpins maritime stability. The Xiangyang 22's actions, carried out without Japan's approval, stand in direct violation of this core international standard. Beyond the baseline set by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, Japan and China have an additional obligation. In 2001, the two governments reached a practical arrangement for marine scientific research in the East China Sea. Under this understanding, each side is supposed to apply for permission at least 2 months before conducting research in the other's claimed exclusive economic zone. The process requires detailed notification, including the name of the vessel, the planned area, the equipment to be used, and the objectives. This was designed to prevent surprises, allow for review, and reduce the risk of confrontation at sea. For Tokyo, this means that even routine surveys by Chinese government ships should arrive with paperwork, not with cables and sensors already in the water. In the case of Xiangyang 22, no application was filed. China provided neither notification nor a request for consent before beginning its operations off Amami Oshima. Japan's legal tools stop short of effective enforcement. There is no dedicated statute that criminalizes unauthorized foreign marine scientific research in the exclusive economic zone or that sets out clear penalties. The Japan Coast Guard can issue warnings and monitor activity, but it cannot detain or fine a foreign government research vessel solely for lowering survey equipment in these waters. As a result, enforcement is limited to radio warnings at sea and diplomatic protests through embassies. The gap between international expectation and domestic capacity leaves a clear enforcement gap, one that persistent actors can exploit, knowing that the consequences are likely to remain diplomatic rather than operational. September 28, 2025. At sunrise, the Japan Coast Guard's 10th regional headquarters picked up the Xiangyang 22, a Chinese state research vessel drifting 379 kilometers west of Amami Oshima. Crew aboard the patrol boat watched as the Chinese ship lowered a wire-like object into the sea, an unmistakable move for marine data collection. The Coast Guard's warning crackled over the radio, demanding an immediate halt. After 3 hours, the vessel turned and slipped back across the Japan-China median line, but the pattern was only beginning. The very next day, September 29th, the same vessel reappeared in nearly the same spot. Again, it deployed equipment into Japan's exclusive economic zone. Another warning, another retreat. Yet this was no isolated incident. As October began, the Xiangyang 22 returned for 3 consecutive days, October 1st, October 2nd, and October 3rd, each time repeating the same routine: extend pipe-like gear, collect data, data, and then withdraw westward when challenged by Japanese authorities. Every approach followed a steady rhythm. The ship would enter the exclusive economic zone, conduct its survey, and then, once detected and warned, cross the median line before returning days later. By October 5th, the vessel was spotted yet again, this time 420 kilometers west of Amami Oshima, with the Coast Guard's warning echoing, "Marine survey without Japan's consent is unacceptable." The ship left within the hour. Over just a few weeks, at least 5 separate intrusions had been recorded, each one reinforcing a deliberate pattern. Xiangyang Hong 22 was not simply passing through, it was testing boundaries, one incursion at a time. October 5th brought the pattern into sharp relief. Just after 11:20 a.m., the Xiangyang Hong 22 was observed 420 kilometers west of Amami Oshima, once again deploying a pipe-like object into the waters of Japan's EEZ. The Japan Coast Guard issued a radio warning that marine survey without Japan's consent is unacceptable. For nearly an hour, the vessel lingered, continuing its operation as if weighing its options. Then at 12:15 p.m., the ship altered course and crossed the median line, slipping back toward Chinese claimed waters. This was not the end. On October 14th at 6:50 a.m., the same vessel was found inside the EEZ, extending survey equipment into the sea about 385 kilometers from Amami Oshima. Despite another warning, the Xiangyang Hong 22 remained on station into the evening, refusing to withdraw until after 6 p.m. The Coast Guard's persistent monitoring and repeated warnings could not compel the vessel to leave immediately, nor could they halt the ongoing survey. Each encounter followed the same script: unauthorized research, official warning, calculated withdrawal, and eventual return. The cycle exposed a fundamental gap between Japan's legal authority and its enforcement power. Warnings were issued, protests filed, but the research continued, each retreat across the median line temporary, each return a fresh test of resolve. The pattern was no accident. It was a methodical demonstration that a determined actor could operate in foreign waters, harvest data, and face nothing more than a radio demand to stop. The value of the data collected by Xiangyang Hong 22 lies in its dual purpose. On paper, the vessel is gathering scientific information, bathymetry, water temperature, salinity, and currents. In practice, these datasets are essential for military planners. High-resolution bathymetric maps reveal the shape and depth of the seabed, pinpointing canyons and slopes that submarines can use to evade detection. Conductivity, temperature, and depth profiles expose thermocline layers, which determine how sound travels underwater. That is critical for both hiding submarines and hunting them, because sound propagation governs where sonar works and where it fails. Measurements of tides and currents help model the drift of unmanned vehicles and the behavior of mines. The Center for Strategic and International Studies notes that China fields the world's largest research fleet, and much of its work directly supports the People's Liberation Army Navy's undersea warfare planning. According to maritime security analyst Colin Coe, these surveys are never just about science. They are about creating undersea domain awareness, knowing where a submarine can move undetected, where sonar is blind, and where future operations can be staged. China's 14th five-year plan singles out deep-sea exploration and the construction of submarine scientific observation networks as national priorities. The data harvested off Amami Oshima is not just filling research databases, it is building the tactical map for the next contest beneath the waves. Across the Western Pacific, Chinese research vessels have become a regular presence, often operating just outside the reach of local enforcement. In November 2025, 5 Chinese ships, including space and missile tracking vessels, appeared near Guam as US-led defense exercises unfolded. The pattern is not limited to Japan. The Philippine Coast Guard intercepted the Tansuo 3 in May 2025, catching it deploying a submersible without any prior approval. Each of these missions follows the same script: collect oceanographic data in sensitive waters, test the response, and retreat before consequences materialize. For Japan, the Xiangyang Hong 22 episode is only one front in a larger campaign to map the undersea approaches of the first island chain. Policymakers in Tokyo have started to respond, fast-tracking plans for a new mothership to carry manned and unmanned deep-sea probes, and upgrading autonomous monitoring platforms. Yet even as Japan invests in technology, the core dilemma remains. The law is clear, but the tools to enforce it are still catching up. China's survey ships now test the limits of maritime law in real time, no longer theory, but fact. As enforcement lags, each incursion redraws the boundaries of acceptable behavior in the Pacific. What's left unwatched beneath the waves today will define the security dilemmas of tomorrow. Share your thoughts below.